La, 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 la. Hey, can you beatbox?
Yeah, sure. Want me beatbox way?
Go on
Let me
then. Your mic.
go.
We'll do a beatbox off.
Go for it. Just look like a hungry chipmunk going for it. This is also the name of my first band, by the way.
So that was our beatbox off. Votes in who's the best beatboxer. Say that when you're drunk. All right. Right, let's get into this. The final episode. Everyone listening, thank you so much for being here. Brace yourselves. This is the moment you've all been eagerly waiting for. It is the final episode of Not Another Whiskey podcast. Wait. Hold on to your whiskey classes. Let's rephrase that a little bit. So it is the grand final of 2023, a wrap up like no other, a look back on 2023, and the inaugural Not Another Whiskey podcast award ceremony for the year.
Woo! That is right, Mitch. Welcome to our spectacular year-end episode. If you've been riding along with us throughout the year, give yourselves a pat on the back and pour yourself a colossal dram. You've earned it, especially listening to me since February. Was that I joined, Mitch?
February, mate. Honestly, I don't know how people have managed to survive that. You know, I mean, it's whiskey. Been whiskey. It's been hard enough for me
to whiskey.
Now, guys, it's this time of year when we're kind of knee deep, right, in sort of holiday chaos, and I suppose everyone's thinking more about their whiskey choices than listening to us on a podcast. So we're going to give you guys a break over Christmas. We're not going to come back again until middle of January. So this is our last episode for the year. So we've decided to jazz things up with a little bit of a festive twist. Picture this, Nicholas and I are actually sitting here in our Christmas jumpers, or sweater, as you will call it over there, Nicholas, sipping on a little bit of eggnog that may be laced with a splash of Benriach.
Indeed. And a partridge in a pear tree.
Mate, I can't believe it's Christmas already. Can you believe that?
It's fucking crazy. It. Wild, right? Absolutely.
When did that happen?
Indeed. Well, Mitch's version of festivities, easy for me to say after my eggnog. It does involve questionable jumpers or sweater weather, as we like to call it here, sweater weather. But anyway, first up, a quick look back at the roller coaster of 2023 in the whiskey universe. So hold on to your drams because we've got a lineup of awards. That means basically they mean diddly squat, right? So, but if your name or brands get a mention later on, then Mitch, what will people expect to get? What gifts and goodies have we put aside?
Oh, mate, buckle up, people, because you will get practically nothing. Well, maybe a small note from Nicholas and I, but you know, it's the thought that counts, right? So hey, who knows? Next year we might change this we might get some medals and everything that we send people next year. Take this to the next level. What do you think?
Mate, that's exactly like, guys, we thought about getting you prizes, and it is the thought that counts. We decided not to, but we did think about it. So best wishes, Scottish. Correct. Best wishes, thoughts and prayers. Right, that's what we're sending folk right now. So, right, let's kick this off with my bugbear to recap in the year. We've had one hell of a year for celebrity brands, right? So not just celebrities getting involved with brands. That's one thing if somebody's in there and kind of partnering up and doing like collaborations and stuff. But when celebrities say, this is my tequila, this is my whiskey, this is my vodka, fucking hell, who have we had? We've had Michael Bublé, Lewis Hamilton, Rod Stewart, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Kiefer Sutherland, Bob Dylan, Rolling Stones, Wu-Tang Clan, James Cosmo, Metallica, and Nelly, just to name but a few. So Mitch knows that this is the thing that sends me off in a spiral. I'm going to keep this like Danny DeVito, short and funny. Basically, moving forward, any celebrity whiskies coming out in the future, we're going to fucking crucify you for it. So,
or we're not going to talk about them.
No, we are. We're just going to say don't go and buy them. We will talk about them. But if the whiskey's crap, once we've tasted them If we're like, this smells like marketing, we're going to call balls and strikes all day long. If the whiskey's good, kudos to you. We'll let you know. But if it feels and smells and looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, if you're telling me that you really wanted to make a bourbon, but somebody came along with an Irish whiskey, so that's what you did, we're going to make sure that the world knows that you're a turd. So, on that note, Mitch, what else have we got?
I purposely put that in first.
Yeah.
And made you read it out. You should see his red. You should see his face right now, listeners. It's like he's gone bright red. It's hilarious. He's like, dude, have you taken your medication today? Like, calm that shit down.
And breathe. And namaste, motherfuckers.
Yeah. So, I mean, what else has been? I think the other kind of big thing that happened this year that we saw was the whole cask investment thing eventually blow up because, we've been sitting, I think, as people within the whiskey industry, we've been looking at all these cowboys out there that have been doing this for a long time. And it seems like this year something's eventually being done about it with the Advertising Standards Agency stepping in and putting a ban on advertising, or restrictions, I should say, on advertising with these companies, which is long overdue. It's a shame the SWA haven't stepped in yet, and it doesn't look like, as we record this, they will do at any point, but hopefully we'll stand corrected there. We had the Cask Whisky Association come on board, which was kind of controversial. That kicked up a lot of people not happy about that, let's say, within the Scotch whisky industry, and we chatted to them about it, so that was very interesting for us. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this progresses next year and where we're going to stand as we talk about this in a year's time. Indeed,
Mitch. Indeed. Other news of exciting things: Mitch finally bought himself a bottle of whiskey. Is that right, Mitch? The Macallan sold for 2.2 million quid. So one of only 12 bottles, which were hand painted by Valerio Adami, who was an artist, Mitch. It wasn't Adamski, the musical artist that you were.
Was it not?
Was it? Nah, it wasn't the Adamski bottle. That sold for £2.2 instead. But this was in 1926. It was bottled in 1986, making it Mitch, do your math quickly.
17-year-old.
Well, that's a highlight into your younger days as a young man. Anyway, 60-year-old whiskey there, kicking off for 2.2 million, which massively outsurpassed the 1.2 that they thought they would get at the high end of the auction site. So again, Macallan going to town and really lifting the bar and the price tag on some of those rare bottles.
I mean, that is big news, right? Because that is the most expensive bottle of whiskey ever sold. So again, where's this going to go to? Is that going to be it? Is that as peaked for charity bottlings, do you think? Or do you think we're going to see something go higher than that in the future?
I think we'll see one of these bottles come back. It's the same bottle keeps coming back up to auction and driving the price up, right? It's not not like, oh my God, it's a whole new whiskey that came out. So just going over and having a look at some of the older bottles coming, I think next year, or within the next 5 years, shall I say, we're going to see the first 100-year-old whiskey coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be a Gordon MacPhail bottling, and I think it'll take the prize for the most expensive bottle ever sold, because I think there will be one of them.
I think it will be interesting to see with the Distillers One of One, we're eventually going to see a couple of those bottles go into auction.
Yeah.
And then what are they going to fetch? I mean, that could surpass that quite easily, I think, because we're talking about
one of one,
something that is not going to be replicated.
Yeah.
Speaking of 101, I mean, that was big news, this year.
Very big news.
£2.25 million raised for charity through those unique bottles that were being sold, which is incredible to see. So well done to all the brands, everyone that was involved in that, Jonathan Driver, all the guys at Sotheby's as well. Amazing work. That was great to see. That made me very happy.
100%. Also, some new single malts coming out. So, new first release single malts from Holyrood, Harris, North Point, and Ballindalloch. So, again, great to see new single malt production happening with these new distilleries that have gone from either doing blend whiskies, some of their older stock profiles, but actually being able to release some of their new single malt for the first time ever is very exciting.
I think, and I'm probably going to be corrected here by some whiskey geek, but I think this year was probably the most amount of releases from a new distillery for the first time. I don't remember a year being like this for releases. And I think we've missed a few off there as well, mate. I think there might be a couple more new releases from new distillery, like first time,
Indeed.
And not only that as well, we've seen so many new independent bottles come out.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy year for new release and new whiskies.
You would know, Mitch, to send them all to you, so I wouldn't know about that stuff.
Right, calm down. Just let it lie, will you? Just let it lie.
After celebrity brands, that's my second bugbear. That people, for some reason, brands decide that all whiskey can be sent to Speyside, but nobody can manage to get a bottle out in New Jersey. Aye, very good.
All right, calm down. Move to Scotland and dry your eyes, eh? The other big thing, another distillery on Islay, Pernod Ricard, announced that they were going to build another distillery on Islay, which I think would take it up to 13 now. And that's just getting crazy. I mean, I've noticed, I don't know the last time you went to Islay, Nicholas, but, the first time I went there, everyone was so happy, like, yay, very, very friendly. Last time I was there, everyone was still really happy, but I could get this sort of tension, sense of it's getting a bit too much now.
They've seen it before.
Yeah,
they've heard your chat.
There's that.
I think it's just, is it you or is it?
I thought we told them to get off the island. but that's it's when is it going to stop on Islay? When are they? Is it getting too touristy now on Islay? Is it getting overwhelmed with distilleries? I think that's maybe a conversation we need to have with some people from Islay.
Yeah,
on the next season.
It's already pinpointed, mate. So not just people that are going to be working in the industry, but just people that live in these islands and how it's affecting them in the world in which they're growing. Because there's other industries. Obviously, the Scotch whisky industry does a massive amount of work for the island of Islay, but there are other things going on there. So people just going about their everyday life are now finding themselves struggling for a parking space every now and again, right? It's the little annoyances in life. There's no milk at the co-op.
Need milk at the co-op, yeah. Big time.
Indeed. So other news that we've covered this year, Japan obviously starting to create some new guidelines around its malt whiskey production, which is good to see. Obviously we want to see that expand out to classify its world whiskies, some single grains and more, and maybe make some of those rules not just optional but mandatory. They are guidelines, they're not mandatory rules the way that you have in Scotch whisky, but it's a step in the right direction, predominantly to get rid of bad players that are mostly either mislabeling their whiskies, or what's really going on in Japan, to be honest with you, is a lot of sake and sochu has been fortified with grain alcohol, darkened down with caramel colouring, and then being sold into the Asian market as Japanese whiskey, something that had never seen an oak barrel before. So it's good to see some guidelines coming into play. Obviously, myself and the Shibui team are really part of helping champion transparency in the Japanese whiskey world, and hopefully the big boys as well will start to really take a lead on not just talking about their single malt production, but also I think champion the category of blended whiskies, world whiskies, and things that they've really built their backs on. I think that's really exciting to see as well, and we have started to see a little bit of that happen, so long may that continue.
Yeah, mate, that is good news. I think it will be interesting to see how that progresses as well. Because I know, am I right in saying that not everyone's on board with this yet in Japan?
So the biggest players are, right. So you've got us at Shibui, you've got obviously Nika, you've got Suntory and Yamazaki. The issue, Mitch, it's kind of a little bit like Cask Whisky Association here, right? So the guidelines that are written, the head of the association is also the chairman of Suntory. So it's a bit odd. Like we shouldn't have that. Like fundamentally, that's one of the issues. Secondly, it classifies malt whiskey production. It doesn't really look at all other styles of distillation and maturation that's going on right across all the different islands of Japan. So most people don't know that, for example, none of the malted barley that's used in Japan comes from Japan, right? So it feels weird to say that the thing that needs to justify, in order to be a Japanese whiskey, you must use a grain from a different continent that's malted in a different country. That seems odd to me. The Japanese they're eking their way through this a little bit. And again, it comes down to transparency, and nobody wants to have the really tough conversations. We do our best at Shibui to make sure that you just tell people how you make your whiskey, and if the whiskey's good, people should should still come and drink it. And that's where I think, you know, we're in great company. The standard of Japanese whiskey is exceptional. Long may that continue. And I think it's really about trying to get rid of some of these nonsense sideline players that are doing things that specifically in Asia with grain alcohol and, you know, fortification and things like that. That's not ideal.
So anyway, moving back to the shores of Scotland, cool thing that happened this year was that the oldest whiskey in the world was found in Blair Castle. I love this story. So basically a cellar door, it was a hidden cellar door that they found. And a guy called Bertie Thruton, who was a resident trustee at Blair Castle, found a number of old bottles in this cellar door. Around 40 bottles of whiskey were discovered, basically on the back shelf. They were believed to have been distilled in 1833 and bottled in 1841.
Wow.
So they reckon that a very young Queen Victoria, who was staying in Blair Castle at the time, would have been drinking this whiskey, which I thought was a really cool story.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So speaking about old whiskies and the companies that fundamentally have the oldest stocks of Scotch whiskey, arguably, Gordon and MacPhail announced this year that they're going to stop doing indie bottlings and focus on the single malt distilleries of Cairn and Benromach, as we often hear out here in the States. Mitch grimaced the same way that I do when people say Benromach the wrong way. But this is pretty big news in the grand scale of things. Obviously, they have a considerable stock profile to still. I mean, if they didn't bottle a single bottle of independent bottling, they'd still have 80 years worth of stock to plough their way through. But this is cool. They're not going to fill any new fill, which will allow some of the smaller independent bottlers really to step up and start working with some of the other distilleries to help fill that need. And it is an important need. But it also means that Gordon and MacPhail are really taking a strong turn to look at their own distilleries, which I think is really exciting and shows real commitment to where their business is going to look for the future.
Yeah, that was a bombshell. That was a big bombshell. I was not shocked at that, but you know, it's good to see that they're going to be concentrating on what they're making. And like you say, I'm sure they've got a load of stock sitting in the wings that they'll keep using and utilizing. The resurgence of Campbeltown, mate, that was big news this year.
Indeed.
I mean, this has been, I think we were chatting about this on the show last year. We went down to Campbeltown and we saw all this, but we've got 3 new distilleries that are going to be created in Campbeltown. So we got Witchburn, Machrihanish, and Dalriata. So that's really exciting to see. And I think that's one of the things we need to do when you're over is try and get a wee trip down to Campbeltown. Maybe pop over to Islay as well if you've got time.
100%. Campbeltown Loch, I wish you were whiskey. Campbeltown Loch, oh aye.
Who sings that again?
Oh, why am I going black? The minute the words came out of my mouth, you're going to need to Google that while I'm singing it for you then. Campbeltown Loch, I wish you were whiskey. Campbeltown Loch, oh aye. Campbeltown Loch, I wish you were whiskey, I would drink you dry. Well, Campbeltown Loch is a wonderful place, but the price of the whiskey is grim. What a sight it would be if the whiskey was free and the loch was filled up to the brim. Ho! Campbeltown Loch, I wish you were whiskey. We got an answer yet? Then he do second chorus.
Yeah, mate. It was Andy Stewart and maybe
Andy Stewart. Yeah, we should keep it that way. Well, I'd buy me a yacht with the money I've got and I got it right in the bay. What a sight it would be if the whiskey was free. I'd be swimming all night and all day. Something like that, isn't it?
Something like that. Very good, though, mate. Very good.
No, it's not that. It was, if I fancied a nip, I'd go in for a dip. I'd be swimming all night and all day. See, you can't even get the words right, Mitch. Anyway, moving on. From Campbeltown Loch to India. Mitch, India grabbed the top spot as the top market in the world for Scotch whisky by volume this year. So big news.
Well, I mean, technically it wasn't this year. It was figures that were released for 2022. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy because, traditionally we've always talked about France, right?
Indeed, we have. And again, obviously this is all predominantly blended Scotch whiskies and predominantly blended whiskies of brands that you may not see in other parts of the world, specifically made for the Indian market and the Indian consumer. But again, it just shows the massive volume consumption that is moving on for France to be outseeded. Which is, how long? I mean, what was the title for France being the number 1 market? That was 2017.
I think I saw that figures have been released for halfway through this year, and I think France might have reclaimed that title for 2023.
Oh.
Obviously, we're not going to see that until
Next
well
year.
into the next season.
But we'll be able to make that announcement.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, I mean,
it's
interesting with India.
That'll be an episode in French.
An episode all in French.
In high school French, yeah.
Oui. Bonjour, Nicolas. Ça va?
Le chat sous la table. Le souris sous le branche.
Le piscine est dans le jardin.
That was just a mixture of Latin.
No, that was the swimming pools in the garden.
I know.
Anyway,
oh, man.
We saw the Scotch Whisky Association release water reduction guidelines for Scottish distillers this year. And that's pretty crazy. I mean, that says a lot, I think, about the world we're living in right now, where in Scotland we have to reduce our water consumption. Indeed. To make whiskey. It's like it's absolutely insane. So right now, to give you guys an idea, it takes around about 40 liters. 40 liters to make a liter of whiskey. The SWA want to basically half that, less than half that, as law within Scottish distillers moving forward. So that was quite a crazy thing I saw. And talking about sustainability and what we're doing within the Scotch whisky industry, a good thing moving forward.
100%. Lots of renewable energy stuff, the stuff that Pernod Ricard put out there to help kind of reduce heat emissions and things like that as well. Really exciting stuff going on in the industry to make us more efficient, more carbon neutral, and better for our production processes for the environment. Some sad news, obviously. Well, there was lots of sad news, but very specifically sad news with Diageo, with the passing of their CEO, obviously in 2020, Ivan Menezes. That was a really sad loss, especially because he just retired and he was a young guy. He was in his early 60s. And, a really sad loss for him and his wife and his family, his kids as well. So, sorry to have seen that happen. That wasn't great. And it's been a rocky 6 months for the new CEO, where she stepped into her new role since that. But really sad for Diageo to lose their CEO in that way.
So that's it. I mean, basically, I think it was a really interesting year for, Scottish whiskey and whiskey around the world. We just did the Whiskey Talks event in Aberdeen, and we were chatting about global trends and what was going on. And it was the first time, Nicholas, that I've seen every single country within the top 10, both for value and volume, be in the green. So, massive in a way, in a really sort of positive year for whiskey and the way it's moving forward. We've got a load of distilleries opening up. I think one of my concerns, I suppose, is the way we're at right now within the world, the cost of living crisis, everything else that's going on. Hopefully, we're not going to start to see a little bit of a decline in demand for whiskies around the world, and particularly Scotch whiskey and obviously Japanese whiskey as well. What do you think? How do you think where we're going to sit this time next year?
Look, it's always swings and roundabouts. Right now, we're seeing people talk about it. It's a de-premiumization. People are moving towards more mainstream, everyday sippers and things like that. My gut feel is that for things like Scotch whiskey and Japanese whiskies and that kind of it's a luxury, no matter how it's an affordable luxury in certain aspects, but it's a spectrum as well, right? So for a lot of people, $40 or $50 is a lot of money. For some people, that's what they go and they spend at the liquor store once a week, and they buy themselves a nice bottle of whiskey and they go and drink it. So I think for us, what you're going to see is, the younger consumer maybe spending a little bit more time on non-alc and trying to be more conscious in that way. But for the single malt whiskey consumer, for the blended Scotch whiskey consumer in major markets like the UK and the USA, I still think it's a premiumization market. I still think there's people looking for that. A 35-year-old consumer and up is looking for accessible single malts as well as high-end luxury wow factor whiskies from time to time. So I think that the brands that are established and continue to put out great award-winning whiskies are always going to do well. I think it's a tough time for innovative brands to do quirky, weird, young liquid, and we're seeing some of that struggle for some of these new make American bourbon distilleries that are kind of popping up, which has been massively expanding. The price of bourbon is skyrocketing because of it. Bourbons used to be $25 to $35 a bottle. Now they are consistently $60 to $85 a bottle for young, relatively unheard of bourbon brands. So, that maybe be the market that suffers the most because it's becoming busier and busier, but we shall see. My gut feel on it is that Scotch whiskey is going to continue to grow and flourish, maybe in different ways. I'd like to see a little bit more of a resurgence of blends, if I'm being honest.
I think that's going to happen. I think that's happening this year. You can see a lot more blends coming on the market, and with the price of single malt going up and up, then I think that's a sort of natural progression. That was one of the things we're chatting about. In 5 years from now, is everyone going to be drinking cheap blends and new make spirit?
Well, not just cheap blends, but just other blends, like world blends, world whiskies. Like, I'd like to see some of the, like, there's so much innovation, like, that is being stymied because we're set in our ways, right? So what's the massive, like, it doesn't matter what you call it. It matters if the whiskey's good. So, is there going to be a way for us to start seeing American whiskies blended with some Scotch whiskies, and we call it something different, and we're going to see some hybrids? Like we've done with our cars, Mitch. If you can get a hybrid car, why can't you get a hybrid whiskey?
There you go. And on that note, let's move on to. Shall we move on to the awards?
Let's.
Shall we cue the music? We've got music, right?
Sure. It does sound that. It does sound. Do you not think there's? Did you ever hear the old theme tune to Grange Hill?
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Oh man, we're gonna have to change the theme tune now for next season. You just ruined it for me.
There you go. Well, maybe that's something we look at, right? New music, new year.
Oh, crazy. All right, let's get into these awards, mate. You want to kick this off?
Sure, absolutely. So, right, guys, and take this in the spirit that it's meant. A little bit of tongue in cheek. These are the Drammy Awards for some of the things that Mitch and I have seen throughout this year that we thought was pretty impressive. We'll start with Best Performance of an Accessible Whiskey of the Year. Mitch, what was your pick for relatively accessible whiskey of the year that you thought was just wow factor?
Well, before we get into that, Nicholas, I think what we should do is we should read out. So we put.
Do you want me to start with the Instagram, guys?
Let's. I mean, people were kind enough to shout out some of their amazing.
Kind enough, lonely enough, whatever. Mitch asked the question, you guys gave his answer. So Matt J54 said the best whiskey that he had this year was the Finn Thompson bottling of Manachmore 13-year-old. Mitch, have you tried that?
I haven't. No, we had Finn on the show a while back, but I haven't tried. I think Daz got sent all those samples.
Oh, shocking, right? Between the two of you, I still get hee-haw. Tyron Darnell said that the Kilcoman Fino Sherry Cask 2023 edition. Scott Hamilton said the AD Rattray Glenburn 25-year-old. Ben R. Over. Is that a joke? Ben R. Over. Glenfiddich 29-year-old. Duncan McRae, the Talisker Wilder Seas. Charlotte Coyle said the Woven Handmade. Daz, our friend Daz, came in with the Bowmore 1969 50-year-old. Russell. And then Terry Bryce said the Ben Romick 18-year-old. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that you read Ben or Over.
Ben or Over. Was that you just writing that out?
Yeah, it was, mate. It was a good one.
No.
All great drams there. Woven definitely, yeah. I had a little bit of that homemade. That's really good. Ben Romick, I'm really enjoying a bit of Ben Romick this year. 15 has been my kind of go-to jam this year. I've been loving that. But for me, so when I thought about this, there was two drams, right? And I put one in here that's unobtainable, that's just stupid. And that was from that one of one. We did the episode with Rachel Barry, which was amazing. They sent me a little sample of their one of one 1965, which was one of the casks that was selected for that bottling. That was sublime, like just an insane dram that I've had this year with the Glenglassaugh. But one that I think everyone can go out and buy, and it's not the cheapest. And I think I said Glen Scotia last year for my favorite dram. And it's won it again this year. Glen Scotia 21-year-old. I had a sample of that right at the start of the year, and just absolutely stunning. So good. Yeah,
you've been raving about that distillery since way over a year with me, and were kind enough to bring me one of the travel retail exclusive bottles of Glen Scotia out with you. to me, and it was delicious. So well played.
You finished it yet? Is it done?
Nah, I never really finish bottles of whiskey. I like to keep a little bit. I like to share them, to be honest with you. So
sharing's caring.
Yeah, sharing's caring, right? To me, the Benmue 16-year-old, I still think that's consistently one of the best single malts on the market. Bang for buck. It's available. It's accessible. I'm not as fancy as Mitch with these 21-year-olds and things like that. But and I certainly don't get to try the 101s. But to me, the Benmue 16-year-old was a really killer drop. The other one that I was thinking about, Glenallachie 15 this year. That was the one that was sitting tip of my tongue, like two really great accessible whiskies that I thought were really fun. All right, the Peated Picasso Award. This goes out to the most creative bottle design.
What did you have here, mate? I mean, I struggled with this one because I had quite a few that I put down here. I really liked, and it wasn't so much that this one was a really creative, wow bottle design, but it was just a cool idea. And we reported on this right at the start of the year, and it was the Stoning DIY bottle. That's what you should have called it, the Dawning. Put the D in there. But the Stoning DIY bottle, so you could actually personalize this. They gave you a little kit that you could, they sold with it. I thought that was kind of cool. That was kind of funky. For something that was absolutely bonkers and crazy. Pretty much anything in the 101, but the Brora 50-year-old. Do you remember seeing that, mate?
Absolutely beautiful.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah. But I mean, just works of art.
Yeah. And then one that was really up there was Isla Harris with Hirak, which they kindly sent us a couple of bottles of. Beautiful bottling with that.
Sent you a couple of bottles off.
You got yours, didn't you?
I got a little pour down sample, mate. I didn't get a bottle of that. Come on.
Oh.
Shocking. But the ones that I did go out and buy, these are ones I went and bought myself. To be fair, one that I bought myself, one that was kindly sent to me, the Glenglassaugh 12-year-old is cracking. It's just a well thought through piece of packaging. The bottle, the cap and cork shows just has this kind of weathered, seafaring look to it. It's kind of almost like that washed out Tiffany blue wooden cap. It's really nice. And then there's just some really nice details over the kind of, just feels oceanic to me. It feels coastal, and it was a really nice piece of packaging. The other one that I thought was really cracking when I got my hands on it was the Glenturret Triplewood. And for those of you that haven't seen that, it's a beautiful design. It's a really heavyweight, nice piece of packaging. It just feels super premium, and the quality of the liquid in both of those bottles speaks for itself. But from a design and packaging standpoint, those were the two that really stuck out with me. Has been really pretty and really worthwhile of the Peated Picasso Award.
So the overall winner is?
I don't know. Is it Glenglassaugh? Well, I didn't know we were doing an overall winner. Okay, well done, Glenglassaugh. You get a round of applause.
Well done. All right, so this award ceremony is going so well, isn't it?
I know.
I mean, just as well we're not doing this live and on stage or anything, mate. Can you imagine? Fucking disaster. All right, so the next award, Dramtastic Ad, awarded to the whiskey brand that delivered the most entertaining or captivating advertisement of the year. Now, we had a kind of discussion on this, and I think there's been some really good stuff out there this year. There hasn't been anything that's wowed me apart from one company, and that would be Moët Hennessy Louis Vuitton with Glenmoe and Ardbeg. All the stuff they've been doing this year, I think, has been really, really cool. The vibrancy in all the Glenmorangie adverts that are coming out, the way it's very much all-encompassing with different styles of whiskey drinker. And then Ardbeg just with all the crazy shit that they're doing with Dr. Bill and chucking him in videos with barbecuing and blowing up the distillery and getting cake thrown in his face and all that shit. Like just really cool, quirky, kind of out there. You agree, mate? You like all that stuff?
Love it. And I think you're right. LVMH do a wonderful job every year of the stuff. Their packaging is always killer. It's always really well thought through. The design team are really talented, and their agencies that work for them are obviously given really great directive from the top. So right across the board, well done to that team. You guys have a well-deserved trophy at the Dramtastic Ados. Next award is the Angel Share Prize. This is personal, Mitch, because this is basically just you and I, what we drink most at home. So the whiskey that disappeared the fastest from your personal collection. What was it this year? What whiskey went woof?
Do you know, I think it was the same as it was last year. There was two. So again, I'm going to go back to Glen Scotia, Victoriana. It's one that I can never keep on my shelf that long. One of the reasons, like going back to your point, Nicholas, is I like to share that out as well. I love giving it to people when they come in the house. Another one is Daoyuan. Daoyuan 16, but that's relating to the house that I live in. You know, people come to my house. It used to be the old excise officers for a house for Daoyuan, so they get a Daoyuan. But the other one, this is probably the one that goes quickest. Tamdu 8-year-old from Mothership. So my two boys, Jason and Mike, amazing liquid. It just seems to fly off. I was chatting to Mike about this the other day, and I'm like, dude, that stuff is so good. He only had 10 bottles left when I spoke to him on Saturday about it. So might be sold out by now, just saying. What about you, man?
So I've got two as well, fun enough. First of all, again, independent bottler, shout out to Keith Bonington. He put together a whiskey called Easy Sipper. And if you've not seen it, it's kind of this cool psychedelic. It's actually, it's an 11-year-old North British, and it is killer. Single grain, absolute delicious sipping whiskey. Really nice whiskey. Really fun piece of packaging, relatively well priced, great bang for buck. So that was one from Scotland that disappeared. The other one, and this is a little self-plug mention that you knew this was coming, Shibuya Pure Malt 10-year-old by far has been the one whiskey that I've poured for more people this year than I can even eat, like wildly, mainly because it was named the best Asian whiskey in the world at IWSC, and it was the only malt whiskey from Japan to be in the top 100 best spirits in the world at Ultimate Spirits Challenge. But plug aside, it just seems to be the go-to. Like, people love it. It's kind of, you know, it's a really rich, robust malt whiskey. It's triple cask matured in bourbon, Oloroso sherry, and Japanese Mizunara. And it's my go-to favorite right now at the moment in the whiskies that we make. Obviously, our single grain's got a lot of love and attention as well. But for me, Shibuya Pure Malt 10 was definitely the whiskey that I drank the most off my own personal share. Plug. Thank you. I do appreciate that. There you go.
No, it's good juice. It is good juice.
Thank you, sir. I do appreciate that.
This is a tough one. You ready for this one? We're going to do the Guest Banter Award. So our favorite guest on the show, who wrote this one? Like, this is such, let's just firstly say a big thank you to every single guest who has come on the show this year. We've loved all of you. It's 100%. Amazing having you on. You guys have given the show so much depth and breadth. Without you guys, it would just be us two idiots talking bullshit. So thank you all so much. And this has been like picking our favorite child, right?
Yeah. If it wasn't for the guests, I wouldn't do this, Mitch, because it would just be you and I. No, joking. I'm just even thinking, like, this is what I tell people as well. Like, think about this for a whiskey podcast. The quality of guests that we have on our show, from our people who work in the brands, you know, from managing directors to brand ambassadors to master blenders to people that work in the sales forces and like go out there and tell their stories every day. It really is, hands down, I think it's, you know, and I listen to other whiskey podcasts, but man, we kill it. Like, we get the best quality guests, and it's the guests that really help us do what we do best, which is tell a few crappy jokes and tell stories. But I was thinking, like, from even friends like Ricky Crawford and Daz, you know, we had Laura Rampling on, which was really cool for us. You know, she was somebody that was with, you know, William Grant & Sons when Mitch and I joined that business to start our journeys here in the USA. So that was really cool. Personally speaking, there are two that really stood out for me that I thought were I really loved them being on the show. Kelsey McKechnie from Balvenie, I thought was phenomenal. I ran into Kelsey the other day. Aye. Did you say sorry? Oh, right. Okay. You met her.
Yeah. I was chatting away. So
that was nice. I thought she was fantastic, and I'm really excited to see the future of Balvenie under her stewardship and see what goes on there. And the other one that really popped out for me, I just thought was a brilliant guest and really fun, was just recently was John Laurie from Glenturret. I thought he was brilliant, and it's just a great brand, great whiskey. And I might be a little bit sweet here because I did go and spend a night out with him in New York drinking a boatload of whiskey. But between him and Richard Urquhart, the banter was flying, and John just brought that to the show. I just thought he was a great guest, and I thoroughly enjoyed him being on the show.
I'd agree with that. That's a good shout, mate. It's a good shout. Yeah, I mean, for me, this was a tough one, but for me, this was it wasn't just the guest, but it was the moment. So for me, it was the Billy Walker episode, right? And because I actually went up to the distillery, sat with him across the table in Glenallachie, and we just had a chat. And I thought he was so honest, open, really, we got quite a lot from him. It was a very deep conversation. I actually asked him afterwards if he wanted to edit any of that, and he was like, no, not at all. Just have at it, go for it, put it out there, So I thought that was it was a really interesting guest for us to have. But yeah, I mean, so many, thanks to Brendan McCarran as well for coming on the show 20 times this year. All right.
And he counts as 6 guests because he comes on with impressions. So just for those other people out there, you got to lift your game, man, right?
Good point. All right. So the next award, we're going to do the dramatic episode of the year. So this is our favorite episode. Now, before we get into this, we put this one on Instagram as well. We had a load of answers back. So Steph Peck wrote and said the Rachel Barry episode. Definitely agree with you on that. That's up there for me. Ian Bruce, to your point, Nicholas, said John Laurie or Becky Paskin with the inclusivity episode. Barry Reed, Stories and Myths, mate. Remember that episode? That was a good episode. I enjoyed
that. Was a good episode, yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. We also, Cal Whiskey said John Laurie as well. Chris Greaves, I liked his answer. He said Billy Walker, the AI episode, Rassi episode, along with the episode where Mitch slags off Nicholas and Nicholas slags off Mitch. So every episode. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Peter Stevenson, Billy Walker episode, and Brendan's second episode. Ryan Sutherland just said the grilling. What could that be referring to? What do you think? I don't understand.
Based on the sear marks over your back, mate, I'm guessing it's me torching you every time you get on the show.
I reckon that might be maybe the CWA episode, maybe. I don't know. And then finally, we had Daz coming in and saying the one with me on, obviously.
Is that before I became the co-host? Is that just as him coming on as a guest?
I'm assuming he's talking about the one where he was a guest. That was the worst episode of the year, I thought.
It was the least. That was the least listened to episode that we've
5
ever
listeners.
Put out.
5 listeners. That's all we had for that episode.
No, and actually, we have to say, guys, thanks very much for listening. And on that note, we have expanded drastically since Daz left the show. So thanks for tuning in more and more. Thanks for hitting all those follow and subscribe buttons because we are knocking it out the park. Anyway.
Right. So, I mean, the great answers, and thank you so much to everyone for writing in on that. I don't know, Nicholas, I've got two that I want to mention, right? For me. And both of them are the ones that I haven't been doing in this scenario. This scenario meaning we're sitting recording over Zoom right now.
Yep.
So the first one for me would have been when you and I actually hung out together for the first time in ages and recorded a podcast in your whiskey library that you've got there. That was a lot of fun. Just cool doing it together, drinking drams together. A little bit hungover from the night before, a little bit jet lagged, but apart from that, it was great. It was great doing it in person with you, bud. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. The second one was another in-person episode that I did, and lucky enough to get the invite from Alistair Day along to Rassi and go along and experience that whole distillery visit that he's put together there. I highly recommend anyone, if they're on that side of Scotland, round about the Skye area, make the effort to go to Rassi, say hello to Alistair and his team over there. Just a beautiful experience of staying at the distillery, staying up with him till 3 o'clock in the morning, drinking whiskey and recording an episode with him. So that's my top 2 episodes for this year.
Very, very cool. Mine, honestly, when it comes to just real quality content, the Cask Whisky Association felt really important to me. I think we got, and John pointed this out, which made me think about it again. He pointed out when we had him on the show, which is we actually got quite a lot out of that episode that hadn't been in the public domain up until that time. And I think it gave pause for thought, one, about who the people were behind Cask Whisky Association and how they'd gone about forming themselves. And 2, the conversations that they went on to then have to engage with really great people in this industry and have them come on to support them. and now how that's maybe slightly started to unravel a little bit based on the content of that interview. And I think that for us, obviously, Mitch, we're just two dickheads with microphones, right? We're not investigative journalists. We don't prize ourselves, or we're not trying to do any gotcha moments for Andy. We want a guest to come on and really bring the best value that they can. But in that particular environment, we are also custodians of Scotch whisky, and we do see ourselves as custodians of the Scotch whisky industry. We're both keepers of the quaich. We both take that seriously. We both want to be seen as champions of our industry, and the guests that we have on all share that. That was an episode to me that we really brought some things to light, and hopefully some changes will come out of it. Certainly the SWA have started to pay a lot more attention to these guys, and the people that were associating themselves have also started to think about what the value is that they bring versus the value of the Cask Whisky Association without them. So I think that's to me, that was a really valuable episode.
Yeah, it's a good shout, mate. It's a good shout.
The Dramatic Distillation Distinction Award, Mitch, for Best New Distillery Release.
Oh, had we not been drinking before we started these awards, mate? You never get that one out.
Oh, I know. Tell me about it. You're the one that wrote these out, man. I'm like tongue twisting my way through them.
So, well, I mean, I'm going to start off with this one. I think we're both agreed on what it is here, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Honourable mention, Perpetuity by Porterleith. Thought that was really cool. I love what Ian Sterling's doing there. He's taking his background of wine and wine knowledge and using that, and shout out to him as well with that distillery, because unbelievable what he's done there. But for me, the best new distillery released this year has got to be Hirak. I mean, that the whole packaging, the story, the juice is fantastic as well. So well done to the guys from Isle of Harris Distillery. You guys knocked out the park there.
Yeah.
And you'll get your wee note and round of applause from us soon.
Aye, indeed. The only other one which honourable mention indeed was Michael Tor, the Chinkopin cask. That was brilliant. That was in fact, they sent us those that little kit with the 4 whiskies in them, which was cracking. But the Chinkopin cask, well, that's, both of us were like, holy hell, this is special. And so those are the 2 ones that stand out. Harris, Hirak, again, here, Mitch, can't echo that more. And then obviously Billy Walker and Michael Tor is the juice is killer. Well done, guys. Well done indeed.
Then on to the Only Nick Got to Taste Award, which is the most elusive and coveted whiskey bottle release of 2023.
There's only one, which was the Glen Turret James Tyrrell edition. Only 40 bottles in the world. I think it was 8 casks that were used, and Mitch didn't get to try it yet. I did keep some. I did say that in the show, and I did keep my promise. So I have put the little sample, which is maybe the size of a mouse's thimble, that's left for you. But there is a dram there.
So generous of you.
Hey, take what you can get, right? But yes, that was a very special dram, and that is the only whiskey that I got to taste that you didn't try this entire year. So a very special award indeed. The Spirit of Innovation. So this is applauding distilleries that dared to experiment, pushing the boundaries with unusual barrel finishes or bold creations that maybe in some instances even divided opinions. So we have a few here that were really pretty interesting and pretty fun, right?
Yeah, and again, we put this on social media. Tyrell said the Star Wars ginger beer cask, which was, I actually wrote that one down. That's just such a crazy whiskey. I mean, you nose that and you're like, there's something going on here. I can't quite get it. You read the label, you see ginger beer and you go, that's it. That's why I can't get it, because I didn't expect it to be there. So definitely that one. Barry Reid also, we've mentioned this already, but Perpetuity from Port of Leith, which is a great one. But for me, I'm going to put this to Ardbeg, and they've come out with some pretty crazy ones this year. So you've got that bizarre BQ release that they created, and then they've just released a new one as well. I'm blanking on the name of that one at the moment, but it's basically toasting the barrel ends, like scarring them and toasting them to get more of a char involved. I think with regards to innovation, they're probably the ones that are pushing it the most. Alongside that, I'd say Glenfiddich still with their experimental series.
The Grand Yozakura, that cask, the Awamori cask finish, that was super unusual. You don't see much of that. You see a lot of Mizunara now, but the Awamori cask from Okinawa, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And the Orchard as well.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Orchard. Yeah. I forgot about that one. Cracker. Yeah. Actually, I was just reading through there. Obviously, the people that read in from Instagram, it's Barry Reid. You know, this guy, there's a joke about Barry Reid. I'm sure you've heard it. And if not, I'm going to tell you just for fun, right? Just for shits and giggles. So we've not had a bad joke in a while. So this old woman, she writes into Peterhead newspaper. She's based up in Peterhead, and her husband passes away, and she needs to put an advertisement in for the obituary. So she's like, speaking to the guy on the telephone, and she says, how much is it, son, to place the obituary? And he's like, it's 5 pence a word. She's like, oh, it's quite expensive, right? She's looking after her pennies and all the rest of it. As a little widow. So she's like, right, I'll keep it short and sweet then. She says, Barry Reid fae Peterhead is deed. And the guy that's writing up the obituary is like, oh, sweetheart, he feels terrible. He types it out, and he's like, like, don't worry about the money. Like, that's fine. Like, we'll charge you for the words that you've written. But like, is there anything else that you'd like to say? I'm happy just to write out the rest of of this for you. And she goes, no problem. So she gives it a minute's thought, and then she goes, okay, I've got it, son. She goes, Barry Reid fae Peterhead is deed. Ford Escort for sale. So there you go, Barry Reid. Hope you're for Peterhead. And if you're not, that's a wee story for you.
Brilliant. And on that note, that takes us to the end of our awards.
It sure does. And the end of this year, mate. That is it.
That is it. We're done, mate.
Yeah. So, folks, it has been one hell of a 2023 for Not Another Whiskey Podcast and the team here. We've spoken to a ton of amazing guests, which leads us to the all-important question, which we know must be in your guys' lips, which is, guys, how are you ever going to top this? Well, rest assured, Mitch and I have the hamster wheel spinning at full throttle, and we already have an amazing 2024 calendar taking shape ahead, which is correct. We're talking huge here. It's going to be the biggest, most beautiful podcast you've ever seen. Everyone knows it. Everybody says it. People ask us all the time and say, how come you guys don't have your own TV show yet? And let me tell you something. It's coming. It's coming. They know, but everybody's saying it. No.
I like the way you went from Donald Trump to James Brown there at one point. Brilliant, mate. Yeah.
Well, all joking aside, we have a lot of new things coming up, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, let's chat about what we're going to do. So you're going to be coming to Scotland next year, definitely this time. We're going to be doing Speyside Whiskey Festival. We're going to do a live podcast from Speyside Whiskey Festival. We've got all that planned. We've got some great ambassadors, some great liquid that we're going to do. We're going to do a couple of new segments in the podcast for next year that we're going to release to you guys next year, but we've been thinking about them. We've got some great guests already lined up. We've got some amazing subjects that we are going to talk about. We're going to be moving into season 3, mate. I mean, the 3rd season of Not Another Whiskey Podcast. Can you believe that?
No, I can't believe that we've not been cancelled yet.
It's coming. Don't worry. After that joke, it might come.
The guys at Cask Whisky Association probably have a hit out on me, but outside of that, we're fine. Oh man, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a baller year, so we've got some great jokes coming. That's right. Every week, Mitch and I are going to try our hardest to try and make the other one piss themselves laughing. So feel free to DM us if you have any amazing rib ticklers, belly holders, or guffaw getters. We need to know your funny and not so funny jokes. We'll maybe crack a few of them out on the show. So if you get any good bits of banter, let us know. We always want to give them a crack.
Yeah, I mean, as usual, we're going to be giving you guys up-to-date whiskey news. We're going to be talking about new whiskies that are coming out, tasting them. Well, I probably will be, because Nicholas, you won't get sent any. But yeah, we'll be keeping you guys abreast on what is happening within the whiskey world. But on that note, as we sit here in our Christmas jumpers, about to celebrate the holidays, which are just around the corner, we just wanted to take a moment to say thank you again for listening. Have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Hogmanay. What else? What other holidays are there?
Joyful Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, all of them, mate. All of the holidays are coming in December. There you go.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah. So wishing all of you and your families the most amazing end to 2023, the best of starts to 2024. We will see you all on the other side of Hogmanay with a glass in our hand and a whiskey in our breath.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Bye.
See you next year.